Welcome to Trauma Undone. Our guest today has a very unique take on things, and I'm super excited to welcome Michael Martin. He has a unique blend of meditation, outdoor exploration, and trauma-informed present. He guides people back to themselves through nature. As a voice behind Project Mindfully Outdoors, he helps others heal by reconnecting with the wild, inside and out. We explore the wildness of meditation, self-compassion, the power of labeling less, living more. If you've ever wondered how the natural world can become a mirror for your inner healing, this one is for you. Mike, welcome to the show. I'm really
Thank you
excited.
for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
So how did you, being such an outdoors person, how did you connect it with mindfulness?
So it went from a very traumatic experience where life kind of turned itself upside down. I was going through my second divorce and I found myself homeless. The last thing that was said to my face was that I had nothing to offer anybody. So that led to a suicide attempt that night. The next morning I woke up and stumbled back to my truck like nothing had happened, just trying to go about the day. I turned on my favorite hunting podcast, and they just happened to have a Stoic author on that day who talked about, like Marcus Aurelius and different quotes from him that he left behind. And one of them hit me in the face about how adversity is really an opportunity to showcase who we are inside. As a father, that really rung in my ears because we all want to teach our kids how to navigate life, the most fulfilling way. And I thought about where I was at. And if I could turn that around and get back on my feet and do something positive with it, it would show them a lesson that these things really work, these things really happen. And for me, that was the greatest inspiration. When it all came together, though, I had gotten into talk therapy. And I argued with my counselor for an hour about meditation when it was brought up. I was like, I'm not going to shave my head. I'm not going to sit and go, and all that crazy stuff. And afterward, I went out back where I was living and I pulled out my crossbow to take my nightly archery practice. And that was what I conceded. I was like, okay, everything you said was right. I'm sitting here doing this and I'm slowing down my thoughts. I'm controlling my breath work and it feels good. Now, I've always been somebody that loves to be outside, so it's the safest place for me. And I had to take that little practice into the safest environment I knew. And as I started actually meditating out in the woods and on different adventures, it made me realize that, the living world around us, it has a story to tell each of us that's very unique, very personal. And it gets back to the idea that if we just listen, we can actually find it in ourselves to transform wherever we find ourselves struggling. We can do better. We can go forward. We can carry on and we can improve our quality of life.
That's so beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing your story. I mean, it's harrowing to, to have what you went through and, suicide attempt and then just pretending like nothing happened. It's intense. So thank you.
It's definitely a very intense place to start a journey. And, I find it's actually sharing that story resonates with people. It makes it easier to approach their story because they have something to realize that we all go through the same sort of things, maybe in a different context or a different form. There's struggle and there's adversity, and that's where we find the common ground.
It's so true. So when you are out in nature, how do you feel that you can you discover your inner self and your inner story when you are out there and how it reflects back at you?
So it pretty much works really simply because everything around us lives and does things to support everything else around it. Now, where we factor into that big mix is we have a voice. So we're the storytellers. And you walk around or you sit down and you just use the power of observation and you start to build a story. And 9 times out of 10, that story ends up beginning and reflecting something that's in your heart that you might be struggling with. A great example of that would be a few years back. I was out on a hunting trip. It was November 15th, which is the height of the deer breeding season. And I hadn't seen anything all day. It was very, very miserable outside. So finally, early afternoon, this beautiful young buck that I'd never seen before came through. And I like to have a story and a connection with any animal that I harvest. So he was getting a free pass that day. And I'm standing there thinking, as he's teasing me and taunting me, I call myself a hunter. What am I doing? Why am I not taking a shot right now? And then my heart started to speak. I was struggling a lot with my anxiety in the days leading up to that day. And I started projecting that story onto Longhorn, as I named him, and thought about the fact that here it is, this specific day of the year. He's got work to do, but every single day of the calendar, he's on the menu for every predator that's around. So he should be scared. He should be hiding and not coming out to do his work. But in the back of his mind, he knows that he can trust himself. He knows that he has the skills and the ability to at least try to get away from anything that he perceives as truly dangerous. Now, with anxiety and panic attacks, it's not life and death like that. It feels like it. But the thing that we miss when we get caught up in it is that trust within ourselves, the fact that we still have all those skills. And if we just take that minute to breathe and to center ourselves, we too can continue on with our work.
So, do you feel like being out in nature is a way for one to stop and reconnect and pause? Should I rather say stop and pause and have that moment where they can think about what's going on in their lives?
I really do. For me, there's countless examples, and a lot of it comes through the physical part, the actual walk, much more so than the meditation. But if you get that opportunity to center and just be there in the moment and forget about all the stress that you're going through. And the benefit to doing that while you're out on a hike is you're building physical proof that you can take back with you. So when you come up with against a struggle or you find self-doubt, you can look back and say, for example, there's a park down in Indiana called Turkey Run that showcases about 500 stairs you have to climb up. And when you're struggling through life and you come up to a moment, you can look back and say, man, I scaled that 500 stairs. It was hard, but I did it. And now, because I'm here in this difficult situation, I must have something inside of me that's going to help me navigate my way through it. And it's all about that reflection, just putting the two together that helps you to change that narrative that's going on with the self-talk and the other aspects of the mental challenges that we face internally.
So, how did being outdoors in nature give you the self compassion to heal?
That was one that I struggled with for a long time, even after I started meditating. And it was one specific hiking trip where I was down at a place called Indian Mound. There was a burial mound there. I climbed up and I sat there and meditated for probably a good half hour. And I had this experience where all the stuff that I was carrying that I knew was there and I struggled with, but didn't want to acknowledge it, felt like it was kind of poked and prodded, and then eventually pulled out of me. So I got to let it go and leave space for growth and all these new aspects of life that I picked up.
Sorry about that. I thought my computer was on do not disturb. So, yeah, so you were able to let it out.
Absolutely. That's where I've discovered meditation is one of the best tools for healing and for letting those things go. It's a lot like the idea of how we get, say, our hunting tags, the numbers, is based on the North American model of conservation, which puts emphasis on carrying capacity. You have a certain area of land and it can hold so many animals before eventually there's too many and they start getting sick or they can't find food. And we're the same thing. If we think of ourselves as that space of land and the emotions and the feelings that we carry, the traumas, they add up. And before too long, it gets to a point where we physically get sick or we emotionally get run down because we're not letting those things go. And if you look for those reminders or you feel that support from the earth underneath your feet, you realize that number one, it's okay for me to process these things and let them go. But number two, there is a support system that's underneath me that's there to take those traumas, those memories, those experiences off of my shoulders and turn them back into energy to be used in a different way.
So I love that you, even at the beginning, you said, you know, you're not the guy to be sitting and meditating, and now you're the guy teaching this. Did you feel that you had to go through, there was some kind of identity shift once you realized that, oh, this is a great thing for me, or did it just blend into your identity?
It's funny because I look back now on where I started, and I always say that I rebuilt who I am today one swing of the hatchet at a time. And that's what it was because before I wore a mask to cover my depression, to cover my anxiety, and it caused me to always seek external validation or let somebody else give me my worth or my value, even identity. And as I went through this journey, it changed. The focus became centered around this understanding that who I am is internal. It's inside of me. I have this ability to showcase it the way that I see fit. And really, I had to walk all those different trails in order to express that, in order to allow that to grow. And that for me was one of the most important principles was just finding grace and a safe place to discover who I was and then put a voice to that discovery.
So have you added in tools along the way for yourself, for your own personal development? Like, do you go out into nature and journal, or is it still more the communication that you're having with the natural environment?
So actually, I'm a freak about writing. I have 12 different journals that I do for different reasons at different times. But I've always got one in my backpack because it's always good to put those thoughts down and actually see them. And I also carry my phone. I do all my work digitally on my phone. So pulling that out is a lot easier sometimes. But there's also that important aspect of just utilizing that power of being present and just observing, just allowing the story to unfold. And as it unfolds in front of you, you begin to again reflect upon where you're at and you shift that narrative around what you would originally write down to something completely different. And to me, that's where the remarkable aspect of these journeys really happen.
What has been the most interesting or eye-opening journey that you've had so far?
It would get back to the story I was sharing about the Indian Mound Reserve because I got intrigued by the Hopewell culture and the earthworks that they've left behind. So I spent a couple of weeks hiking throughout the Ohio Valley trying to visit and just meditate on these different mountains. And there's a lot of questions as to the things that they've discovered there about what their true purpose was. And for me, the fun part is getting down there, walking, and actually seeing how it applies to your life. And that's been one of the most important parts that I've worked into my practices is just being open and kind of tapping into like that childlike curiosity where we would play with toys and we would act things out. And then we get away from that as responsibilities come up. But if you open that back up and you tap into that tag word, I guess you could say, of adventure, and you just let the mind go, it's not only is it freeing, but it's how you expand.
And so do you find that when you go into all these different parts of the country and different lands, the land has a different vibration, and can now that you're so attuned, you can sense that?
Yes, actually, that was something that I was always like really skeptical about was the energy, the vibes, and all the things you couldn't see. But the more that I've been out and the more that I've done these things, the more that I've realized how fundamental they are. And you can go, say, down to like the Hocking Hills area in Ohio and sit and you can feel something. And then you go somewhere drastically different and you feel something else. And it's important to expose ourselves to it because it leads to questions. Like another great example would be about a year ago, I was down in Fort Boonesboro area of Kentucky. I had just visited the fort there, which was set up by Daniel Boone. He was a big, important character down that way. And I went back over to the original site. I sat down, meditated, and I felt a tap on my shoulder saying Daniel Boone wasn't here. And it led to new adventures and new places that I had to go out and see. And to me, that's where, again, it gets back to that growth, that just willingness to find the adventure and live it, be present.
So when you're working with people, how does this work? Like, what do you suggest? How do you make this happen?
Well, actually, through my work, it's kind of taken a interesting evolution that I wasn't expecting at the beginning because my intention was to work with the outdoor community to tackle the subjects none of us wanted to talk about. But it took a turn, and now I work with more people that are curious about the outdoors and want to come in. 9 times out of 10, I'll encounter somebody that wants to go out on a hike, but they're afraid to get out there. So we start simple. We just simply step into the backyard, just sit down and feel that support. That maybe we'll meet at a park and we'll go for a short hike. It's all about just taking baby steps and meeting, the client where they are in that moment. Another great introduction that I do is I do group meditation classes indoors. So I'll set up a campfire and I'll lead people through a guided meditation. And those I found actually have not really just the tremendous impact, they have the deeper impact because I find a lot of people come to these classes and events not really knowing why they're there. It was just something that looked good and they signed up for it. And then at the end, they realize that they've just tapped into or kind of started working their way through something that was on their heart. For the other day, I was doing a class and this woman showed up and she had just lost her husband that morning. So dealing with grief, it's very hard in the moment, but when you sit down and you meditate, you go through the process a little bit easier. You're able to accept it, understand it, and then realize that, even though that person's gone, they still live in your heart. So they're still connected, they're still with you on that energetic level.
So if somebody is feeling inspired now and they want to connect with nature, what is the first thing you recommend that they do?
Simply go outside. And a lot of the time throughout the course of the day, we struggle with that disconnect feeling. We just got our head down and we want to go from point A to point B as quick as we can. That's the ideal time to simply step outside and look down, touch the ground, even with your hand, because you're acknowledging that there's a support system beneath you. And then the next step you could do is stand back up and reach your hands up as high as you can into the sky. Because by doing that, you're acknowledging that there's forces above you that are offering you more inspiration or offering you new verbiage to build the stories that you're trying to connect in order to work through whatever it is that you're working through at the time. And then you can take it onto a trail. It doesn't have to be anything epic. It can be just a simple half a mile walk around a park. It's all about baby steps and wherever it is that you feel comfortable.
I know that at one stage in my evolution, all I wanted to do was lie down on the ground and just with like my feet up, like at 90 degrees. That's all I wanted to do. I just remember saying to my counselor one day, that's how I want to spend the next, I don't know how long, like indefinite amount of time. Is that even helpful? Like lying on your floor at home?
Absolutely. It's just another version of the ground that's beneath you supporting you. And I feel like, internally, with that struggle that we all go through, finding support in any shape or form is so important because it gets back to that carrying capacity. As we find that support, like us talking here in a conversation, you're letting those things go. You're working your way through it. And laying on the floor in your house is doing the exact same thing. It's bringing those thoughts up. It's helping you process and ultimately let them go in order to make room for whatever the next layer may be.
Do you spend a lot of your time outdoors? Or
I do.
I love that you're sitting outdoors right now. It's like amazing to me. I love it. And I can hear the birds in the background. It's making me so happy.
This is actually where I do a lot of my own podcast work is I sit outside, I write, and I record my episodes in order to really feel and connect with what I do. I've always gotten on a lot of different calls and people are like, "You're outside. That's so weird." And I'm like, "No, this is what I do, not only for a living, but for myself. This is how I take care of myself. I go in and out, I go into the concrete world, I guess you could say, and I function just fine. That wasn't always the story. It was always about just being outside and being away from people. And oh, it's actually kind of funny as I go. There's a bee sitting on my finger right now, and I guess he enjoys the story. And it's all about different things like that. They all bring messages. But where I was going with that was years ago, as this journey was going. If I was at home running through my 9 to 5 job and trying to kill time in between, even though I was living in a house with roommates, I had a little tent that was set up in the garage, a little 2-man tent. That was the only place that I was comfortable being, was in that tent, hidden away from everybody. And the more that I got out, the more that I practiced just being social with, connecting with exactly that little bee, just seeing and just being. It helped me build the confidence to step back into the concrete world, be able to flow back and forth and just enjoy it. And now I come out here and it's still therapeutic. It's still very helpful in that avenue, but it also opens up the creative space.
So, what has been the biggest transformation that you've seen in yourself? I know you speak about like connecting, you had more confidence, but what else? I mean, it's incredible to think where you were and where you are today, but how do you see yourself today?
I see myself as very confident, very much me. There's no longer a mask that I wear. I actually feel comfortable within my own skin. And, to go back to that little tent, the fact that as of last November, I started actually hosting classes, getting in front of people, and being able to talk and being able to express these things. That was like the day that I really realized it, that there was so much progress and I was really able to give myself credit for it. And that's another thing that we don't do enough of. I've come to learn with the people that I work with is take time to actually celebrate the growth, celebrate the journey, the wins, and even the losses. Because when you come up short on something, it's not a failure. It's an opportunity to learn, to grow, and sharpen your skills. And it's really become a huge part of my day to just celebrate each and every footstep that I take because I know it's led me from that little tent to where I'm at now.
That's amazing. So, if someone is feeling inspired by what you're saying and they want to take some action, what would you recommend they do right now? They've not even finished listening to the podcast, but they want to do something and you want to support them. What should they do?
So if you're listening right now, there's actually a great little breath work trick that I like to utilize, which then leads up into the clouds. So as you're inhaling and you're exhaling, just gently close your eyes whenever you're ready and whenever you're comfortable. And go ahead and focus in on where that breath is coming and going. And as that starts to build and you're starting to get that strong connection there, allow that connection drift up into the clouds above you. If you need the visual, it's perfectly okay to open your eyes and see the clouds. But as that starts to happen, as you start pushing your energy up there, allow all those racing thoughts that are going on in your mind to bounce from your mind up into the cloud individually. So we're spacing each thought onto each cloud. And if you're really overwhelmed and you're trying to make sense of all this, you can pull one cloud into the forefront and just examine that thought, that cloud, that idea. See what it is that it's trying to teach you or ask you to do, or even just maybe it just wants to be acknowledged. Whatever that may be, allow that childlike curiosity to really explore it. And then the part that starts to slow us down even more when we step away from this is the fact that as you complete that process, you're going to push that cloud back up into the sky. And then you're going to pull that next cloud to the forefront and repeat the process as many times as you need. And it's reminding you that even though those thoughts are running around in your mind, you still have the power and the control over them to process it at your will.
That is such a powerful exercise. I was doing it as you were going through it, and I actually felt like I was sitting up even taller than I was before. So thank you for sharing that with everybody.
Oh, most definitely.
So how can people work with you? Like where can they find you? How do they work with you? Do you work virtually with people?
So I do all the above. The easiest way to find me is on my website. I treat that kind of like my base camp, which is projectmindfully-outdoors.co. Through there, you can book virtual one-on-one sessions with me. You can find my podcast, Project Mindfully Outdoors. I also do in-person classes. I do one-on-one classes. I'll do hikes for groups or individuals. It can be something as simple as a couple hours all the way to a couple of days. And we get together, we talk about what your goals are and where it is you want to experience it. And again, we get back to that simple phrase, meeting you where you're at. So that to me is what makes it so simple, but yet so easy to customize the work to the individual.
Mike, the work that you're doing is truly beautiful, and I'm so happy to have shared it with my audience today. So thank you so much for being on my show.
Absolutely. Thank you for celebrating my work with me.